customer service right now is my thing. Like, we live in a society where more than ever we have to compete to win.
Totally.
And when companies get so focused on their product, they forget that there's a human being on the other side of that transaction, and they're so arrogant about it, and you're on their time and nobody ever calls you back. Like, I just don't understand where it went. Like, at what era did we lose? Was it social media that did this? Did we lose customer service in the last recession? Did the pandemic kill it? I know it was already a problem before this year, but I'm grappling with the fact that, like, when I'm the customer, I'm 90% of the time I'm disappointed in the service level. Even if I'm like, okay, like, even if it's a medical thing, right? Like, my son has lots of referrals that need to get pushed through for his diagnosis and his doctors and whatever. So, like, we'll put in a claim for his medicine, and they won't get back to us, and we'll call them and they'll have an attitude on the phone, or they'll kick us over to the next person. Like,
Right.
you're getting tons of money for this stuff. Like, I mean, whether we're paying out of pocket for it, whether insurance is covering it, whether it's covered in some other, healthcare accounts, why is it so painful for me to get anything done as the customer, as the client these days? And, like, I know there's lots of people that are like, we're customer focused, and, like, I just don't feel it. Like, I feel like it's a very rare thing. Like, isn't it an art form? Isn't it rare to go to, a restaurant when that was a thing, or
When they existed,
or
when
jump on a
restaurants
phone call?
existed.
When, you remember restaurants? Isn't it a rare thing to go into one of those situations, or call somebody who's like, you like some people you dial, you're like, this person's going to be an asshole. Like, I can already tell by the way the damn numbers sound in my ear when I dial the phone, that like, whoever picks up is going to be a prick, right? And their manager is going to be even bigger empty suit, and this is all going to go bad for me. Like, I just feel like that's normal. Like, we're expecting those things. So when you finally see somebody that's worth a damn and engaging and, customer forward, it's super refreshing. It's like, whoa, let me just stop. Like, let me just admire this piece of art that I just witnessed. Like, even if you go to a restaurant and the host, like, acknowledges you and treats you like you're special, and seats you in a, like, oh, where do you want to be seated? Is it by the window? This is under an AC duct? Like, whatever. Like, that's so easy. It's so, like, for people like you and I that are highly dependent on customers and creating value in every situation we are a part of, it's a no-brainer for us. But we're not getting a lot of that back. At least I'm not. I don't know what your experience is, but I just feel like the customer service side of business is completely lost on most people. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe, like, boomers and Gen Xers do this better than, millennials and I don't know what all the generations are, but
Yeah, I don't know what
younger people versus older people, for whatever their deficits are online and social media and technology, maybe they make up for it in some inflection in their voice or customer service. Now, there are young people that do this very well and at a high level. I'm not going to paint everyone with a broad brush, but I'm just super bummed with customer service these days. Like, you're talking about a climate where we're about to have another recession, a 2008-esque recession, right? We're already kind of in it. You got to differentiate yourself somehow. You can't just be like, well, this is my product, and you're going to buy my damn product because you need my product, and I don't care how it makes you feel, and I don't care what remorse you may have for buying the product. Like, do you feel this? Is this something you feel on a daily basis?
So I got a couple of questions for you. Was this something that you saw prior to COVID, or is this exacerbated by, because I think COVID has exacerbated this, because I do agree with you. And I think people being cooped up at home and working from home and the added stress has definitely worn a lot of people thin. For example, most of the places that you call used to be call centers. Well, I believe for a good majority of them, now those calls are getting rerouted to, like, the people's homes. So, like, they have the whole home scenario that they're dealing with on top of trying to solve whatever problem that you're bringing it to the table, right? The reason that you are communicating with them. So I do think in the short term, I think COVID is playing a role. I see people have very short fuses now, really significantly, like, whereas before maybe there could be a dialogue, or like people just pop real quick. And my sort of estimation or guess would be that the being cooped up, the uncertainty, the to a certain extent the fear is playing a role in that. Now, if we take it outside of COVID, because that's only 3 months, 4 months, right? I do think customer service, as things are becoming more and more automated, is becoming a lost art. The fact, for example, that I'm a phone person. I will pick up the phone and call you. You've seen this. I'll pick up and call. If I can't call, then I'll text. If I can't text, then I'll email, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I know that a lot of people would rather just text or email. They don't want to have that interaction with you. They don't, and I think it has a lot to do with maybe the younger generation growing up behind a screen, because I think anybody, I didn't get my first cell phone till like say 2001. And that wasn't a smartphone by any means. It barely made phone calls.
It was a dumbass phone.
Yeah, it was seriously, right? At times it made phone calls, and sometimes it didn't even do that. Maybe you could play Snake on it or something.
Paperweight.
Right, exactly. You could launch it at somebody, hit them over the head. Yep. But nowadays, everybody who's grown up with like behind the screen, there's a certain sort of barrier that you can literally, I mean, look at what I'm doing right now, right? You can create that barrier between you and the other person.
It's a great way out of an awkward situation. Like, let's say you're in an awkward moment and there's two people fighting in front of you. It's a good thing to, I'm in the phone. Like, I'm totally engrossed in this, in the home screen that doesn't even have anything on it, like, just to get you out of the,
like, I'm just trying to put my little password in, but yeah, that's got my whole attention.
Do that, right?
So I do think that the customer service idea has kind of gone. I mean, for example, think about how much automation there is now. Like, you go to the grocery store, there might be one or two people at the checkout, and then everything else is done on your own. You pump your own gas. You don't really talk to anybody. You show up, you put your credit card, you leave. Maybe you might interact with somebody if you're picking something up, but like Postmates will just drop by and basically throw the food at you. Like, driving through, there's your food. Or when you're going through. And so I do think that human to human interaction is slowly being changed a little bit. And I think we're starting to feel that, because there are still some things that at the end of the day, kind of the scenario you posted, dude, I got to talk to you about my scenario with my kid. I got to talk to somebody about this. I can't just have a machine deal with me. So you're going to have to like hear my story, try to figure something out. And but I also think, coupled with that, critical thinking, like solution-based thinking, not necessarily focusing on the problem, but like, okay, we understand we have this issue. Well, what are our options to try to make it better, to try to resolve it, to try to find something that'll make the client customer happy? Right. I don't think that those skills are necessarily being promoted or taught. And I think that's where the disconnect is. At the end of the day, I see this as a 9 to 5. And at the minute I clock out, that's it. I don't care anymore. I don't have to take any of that with me. Whereas with me and you, look at what I just said. I'm the Rolls Royce. What does that mean? That means I am available 24/7. That means that if something does happen, I'm there for my client. If my client needs me to make the phone call, write the email, send the text, have the conversation, have the meeting, whatever it is, I'm willing to do it. That's sort of what I see as my responsibility and my job, and I take that very seriously. I don't necessarily know somebody who's working in a call center or who doesn't necessarily have that interaction. Everything's just done over the phone. It's just some kind of discombobulated
but it's
voice.
everywhere though. So like it's all, even salespeople are bad at this now. Whereas like, so what you're saying is like your Rolls Royce model of you're a Rolls Royce broker, you're a Rolls Royce agent. That insinuates to me that you're dynamic. Like, it doesn't matter if, like you said, you'll put in an offer at 9 p.m. on a Sunday because it's the right thing to do and it'll get us ahead of the stack of everyone else who bids.
Right, exactly.
That's a dynamic situation. Like, you're doing dynamic things to make clients happy, which is in itself customer service. Like, nobody is willing to make the dynamic move anymore. I don't know if it's because they think they'll get in trouble or if it's because some like number cruncher in the back is like, well, when we make concessions, then over the course of the year we lose $11 million or whatever. If it's a $1 billion company, some of those concessions, like in hotels, people used to waive the service charge, and that's like $35 per person per night. And so every time you waive that, you're basically eating into the hotel's profit. But the thing that they don't consider when they say never ever for any reason waive a service charge is, well, what if you're trying to recover on a bad guest experience?
Right.
What if this person would have totally trashed you on Yelp and that $35 just saved the day? Or you understanding and empathizing with them and then saying, you know what, I'm going to waive your service charge and I'm going to comp your whatever. Like, maybe that $11 million a year over the course of a year was actually really well spent in keeping the ratings and the whole machine oiled to the point where somebody's not going to say, we're never coming here again because I just spilled out my guts to this person about how bad of an experience I had. and they didn't give a shit, and they just sent me packing because some guy in the back said, "Don't give away any money." You know, I feel like that's where we're at right now. Is like, and with sales, like I'm a sales connoisseur. I believe in the art of sales. I'm constantly looking for ways to improve my ability to sell and my ability to sell through the art of relationships, through the art of conversation, through the art of kind of, you know, taking down barriers and making people feel comfortable and emoting the things that, you know, they emote to kind of pair with their personality. I mean, these are all sales, you know, call them skills, call them tactics, call them whatever. Nobody knows how to do this anymore. It blows my mind. Like when I was working in audio visual, it was like, you know, I'd have one of my top sales managers would go out and do a site visit with a client. They'd have a great site visit. They'd have rapport. They'd say all the right things. They'd be super knowledgeable, you know, quick, sharp as a tack. They'd have the whole building figured out. And they'd get back to the office and they would put a proposal together. And it was this like 27-page long widget proposal of just all the shit that this show needs to have on it. But it's just a dumb proposal. Like if I'm the client, I'm like, think about what the client just, they had a great interaction with you. You know, they think you're an expert. They love us, right? They love our brand. And then you're going to hand them some 27-page piece of bullshit with widgets on it that they don't know what it is. They don't know what this mic is from that one. They don't know why you need 20 amps of power versus 15. It's all bullshit to them. And then at the end, it's going to have an $80,000 price tag. Is that valuable to the client to do that? Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, that's what they need. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. I'm like, this isn't how we're going to do proposals anymore. Like this was early on in my hotel days. And it was like, this is how we've always done it. Why would we do it any different?
Oh, I love that statement.
I'm like, why would you do any different? Because I'm not going to sign this.
Yeah.
Look, put yourself in the client's shoes. Okay. Now go over there. I'm going to hand you this proposal and think about it from their perspective.
Well, let me pause right there. So I think that's the key right there. What you just said, I think it all boils down to that. If people are willing. So for example, we started our company because my mom had a terrible buying experience. She lost money on not even buying a home. She ended up not even getting the home, and she lost money. Mm-hmm. And so it was that prompted her to say, you know what? I believe that I could offer a better overall experience to this process that'll make the person on the other side happy, that'll be more efficient, and that will ultimately get the job done. And so that's really and honestly, I think that's where entrepreneurs come from. Entrepreneurs look at something and are like, why the hell are you doing things that way when there's so much easier over here? We can get much more profitable, much more efficient, much more whatever. And and the answer is, well, John, we've always done it that way. So why would you change,
that's like
right?
the worst thing to say. but it's true, because I'm like, okay, think of this, right? The next thing that you are going to hand this person that thinks you're great and thinks we're all squared away and we're the best thing going is just a daunting bullshit document. Like, you got lightning in a bottle right now. If the next thing you do is that, you just like the wind just knocked it, because we're going to be the most expensive ticket. Our $80,000 is going to be thrown in a stack with a 60, a 40, and a 20. So, you know, we better have the best damn proposal in that stack, because we're going to lose on account of price. So, but this was the mentality that I kind of brought to that game, and that's why I was able to change the game so quickly. It was like, everything you do needs to be through the eyes of the customer.
Yeah,
like you have to sell it to yourself first. And I'm not saying the price tag is not what you're selling. The fact that this is the highest value thing that you could possibly deliver. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to break down the overall costs, and I'm going to explain the value in each item if you want me to, or I could just show you the high ticket and say, look, we talked about this concept. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it costs.
What you're describing, if you were to, if you delve into like sales sort of philosophy, you're taking more of the educator approach. You're saying there's real value in what I'm proposing, and let's go through it together for me to be able to illustrate why it is that the 15 versus the 12, or the 20 versus the 15 amp, or this mic versus the other mic, right? When you know what's funny? When you provide people with a reason for why you're doing something, that automatically catapults what you're saying into like a different stratosphere. And it doesn't even have to be something logical. Like it could be something.
There's a study on this. They did a psychological study on this, where they had people, basically there was an office building and people were in line for coffee or water. I forget which one it was. And people would cut the line. It was a part of the study, and they would see, okay, well, what pisses people off more? So if you cut the line and you say nothing, everyone's pissed, right?
Right.
That's like the control for the experiment. If you cut the line and you say something illogical, like, oh, my right foot hurts, so I had to cut the line. People, it mitigates the anger in people by like 65%, like a good amount, right?
Yep.
It diffuses the situation almost all the way.
Yep.
If you say something logical, like, oh, you know, I got to pick up my son from school, he's waiting for me.
Even better.
It diffuses it like 95%. So
Yeah.
to your point, people just need a compartment to put that in their mind, and then it's okay. Like their anxiety level, their anger goes down. So
well, it's because you've shown them. For example, if I can articulate to you why using mic A over mic B will result in a better overall show sound quality and performance, all of a sudden now you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. He's thinking about me. He's thinking about like how this is going to go, as opposed to no, you don't get it. If you don't choose mic A, I can't charge you $80,000. I really want to charge you $80,000, so you have to go with mic A. You know what I mean? But I bet you even that would probably fly, like we were saying, over not providing an answer.
Depends on the client and how much of a stickler they are for the bottom line. But so you were going back to say in sales theory, this is called what would you call it?
So you totally threw me for a loop, but at the end of the day, educating, like you're taking you're
right. But is there any other way to sell is my question. Like
absolutely.
what are the other tactics?
No, there is. Like
because I don't sell any other way than look, I'm here to solve a problem, and I'm gonna be an expert, and I'm gonna be knowledgeable, and I'm gonna respond to everything that you ask me. And at the end of the day, if you don't choose me, I honestly feel like I couldn't have done any better. Like I gave you the roadmap,
but you can use fear, for example. Like you can manipulate people. Like, well, if you don't do it this way, like for example, there's a difference between me saying, "Hey Joe, if you use this mic, your performance is going to be bonkers. People are going to love it. The sound quality is going to be fantastic." Let me flip it, Joe. If you don't use this mic, the chances of you having a good performance are nil. As a matter of fact,
sound like Bob Dylan.
You're going to sound like crap. And not only are you going to sound like crap, but you're going to look terrible. And the chances of you getting your next show are slim to none.
Well, I mean, I would never sell like that, but like scarcity is a bit of a fear tactic,
but
right?
Totally. That is, well, I mean, it depends. What I just said earlier is 100% true. If you're competing against 10 offers, that's real. Like I'm not trying to scare you into anything. I'm just framing it in honest. Reality.
But exactly. You know, as a salesperson, when you have scarcity, you know when to leverage it, right? You're not going to not tell a client that things are scarce because you know scarcity is a sales tactic.
Totally.
But it's also the truth. So you're serving your customer in two ways, and it's back to you're educating, right? So you're telling them like, look, from an expert standpoint who does this every single day, I'm telling you there's scarcity in the market. You can either believe me or not. I'm educating you. So I feel like, is there any other way to sell or serve customers than just to educate them? I mean, maybe there's an industry that I'm missing where I haven't had to.
I guess you could also just go like pure repetition, right? You just you literally just bludgeon them over the head to the point where like you've seen so many Pizza Hut commercials that when you think of pizza, it's not because it's the best pizza and it's not because it's the closest or anything. It's just the proximity to it has been so readily available. You know, it's just been over and over and over and over again. Then you think pizza and you're like, okay, Pizza Hut, whatever. I don't even know why I said Pizza Hut right now. I just thought that was the first thing that popped into my head.
I use this tactic when I'm the consumer, like in the case where like I'm trying to follow up on one of my son's medical things. It's like, finally I tell the person on the other end of the phone, like, I'm going to call you every single 3 hours. If you want to get rid of me, then just do whatever the shit I'm asking for, or give me an answer at least. If not, you're going to have to deal with my phone call, whether you ignore me or not, every 3 hours. Like, I'm not going away.
Well, I mean, okay, so here's another tactic though. So if we're talking strategy, one of the things that I use, so as an attorney, I always have like the honey and then like the hammer, right? So you can go one of two ways. You can appeal to somebody or you can threaten somebody. Those are the kind of the two tactics that I deploy. And so I'm big on the honey. Like, so if I was in your shoes, this is how the call may go. You know, I call you up and I say like, look, Joe, I really need your help. Like before we even get into this, can I have 3 minutes of your time? I really need to frame sort of where I'm coming from. I've been on the phone now with 10 different people who've told me 14 different things. The reality is I have yet to get to somebody that can actually help me. And what I'm looking for is help because of these reasons: my son, my situation, my money, whatever it is. Yeah. So what I'm really looking for, are you the person that's going to be able to help me? Do you think you can? When you appeal, instead of being like, you're going to help me because you have no other choice because I'm here and I'm not going away, when you appeal to them and say, look, I'm really coming to you. Now, this isn't to say that this always works. That's why I have the hammer as well. But the idea is, because yeah, exactly. That sometimes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How many honeys are you going to run before you pull the hammer?
But I do a lot, actually. I give them the opportunity, and it's only because after doing it so often, I find that it actually really does work. People, at the end of the day, like you said, people are still people. There's still somebody real on the other side.
Some of them are cyborgs. So I mean, I'll give you this scenario, right? So you're me, and you call the person that you need to help you in this whatever the conversation is, and they answer the phone. They're like, Bob Smith from blah 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 medical group. I'm pulling the hammer out. Like, I'm not going honey on Bob Smith. He's a dickhead already. I can already tell he's at the end of his day. I'm not honeying this guy to death.
So, for example, do you ask Bob how his day's going? So, like, the first thing that I say
when
is,
he answers the phone like that. I don't care. He's the guy who's trying to serve me. I'm the customer.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't approach it that way. I would be like, hey, Bob Smith, how's your day going? I bet you if you did that, you would totally ironic. You would break. No, because here's the thing. Okay, another sales strategy. You're breaking their pattern. Bob Smith is used to people getting on the phone and yelling at him for it. Bob Smith, your invoice is wrong. Bob Smith, the service was terrible. Bob Smith, I hate you. Bob Smith, Bob Smith, Bob Smith. But if all of a sudden you're like, Bob Smith, how's your day going, bro?
What's up, homie?
They'd be like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, what's going on? How are you doing over there? What's the weather like over in Minneapolis?
I disagree. Don't take my kindness for weakness, Bob.
But it's not. No. But here's the thing. It's not weakness because you always frame it from the perspective of, like, Bob, like, I'm asking you for help because at the end of the day, I need your help. And I know that we can go about it in a variety of different ways, but it would really help me out if you saw me as a real human being. And I'm telling you, like, because there's a power in breaking the pattern. If somebody's just getting hammered all day and all of a sudden you just simply ask them, like, dude, how's your day going? Like, what's the weather like over there? You're like, oh, this is because depending on the call center, this is John Case over in Scottsdale. Oh shit, Scottsdale, you must be melting over there. See your reaction. That is exactly.
I'm laughing because you're right, and I hate that you're right. But like, I'm a grizzled veteran at this, and I'm telling you, the hammer works just as well.
Oh, it does. No, it does. But
trust me, I'll go honey. Like, I'm a patient person. I'm a nice person. I'll go honey more than other people. Let's say my wife, but she's more hammer than honey. She's like, hammer, I'm more honey than hammer. But when you go through these situations so often, you're like, I know who to. I could tell by the inflection of your voice and the first 5 words you say to me if you're a honey, if you're gonna get the honey or the hammer. If you're trending one way or the other. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I pull out the hammer on some.
Well, try it. Let's do this.
Innocent bastard.
Okay, so let's put this on wax. Try my strategy because I'm telling you, and it's come over years. So, for example, you wouldn't think that I would deploy this in this particular arena, but it's actually fairly effective when you're talking to collection agencies. Like,
well, I was gonna say, from a lawyer's perspective, actually, this gains merit to me because you got to be surgical in your approach.
100%.
Your profession already has the weight that you need. Like, if you're just calling as some schmuck, it's a little bit different than when you're calling as John Case the lawyer or whatever.
But see, for example, like that I may not even lead with that. I may just be like, hey, I'm John and I need your help. And it's like, okay, you're not going to help me.
Patient.
Well, then, because like I said, it's sort of it's a developed strategy over time of trying different things, and it's mostly dealing with, like, I'm telling you, like in our office we call it playing the game. Like, if you approach it as a game, right? You're playing the game, and
everything's a game.
And so that when you're going to call, you're going to come up against challenges because the game is you are supposed to make it difficult for me, and my job is to overcome that.
So that
I know game? That's the game. That's the game. At the end of the day, that's the game. Like,
I hate the game.
Okay,
and the player.
Fair, and the player. But that's the reality, right? Like, the reality is I'm going to come up against somebody who on a daily basis is just bombarded with negativity. I'm telling you, man, having worked in those call centers, like, briefly, ever so briefly, of having to answer phones all day, it's not fun. It's not fun.
It's like the DMV employee.
And so it's one of those things where I would encourage you to do this. Try to meet them at your humanness. So whether it's like, oh my God, you must be melting in Scottsdale, or how is everything going on? Or, oh, I heard your city's burning. What the hell's going on with that? It doesn't really matter what it is. When you break their pattern, immediately now you bypass their defense mechanism, because now you're talking to the real Bob Smith, not a hello, this is Bob Smith from XYZ company. How can I help you? Now you're talking to real Bob, and Bob is telling you, yeah, man, it's freaking crazy. I can't believe they're making us come into work, COVID and this and that. And now all of a sudden you're talking to a real human, and
Fix
that's when
your
you appeal.
face, Bob.
And that's when all of a sudden you're like, hey, Bob,
I
I
hate
need your
that
help,
you're right
man.
about this.
I got a question for you, Bob. Can you help me with this, man? Like, so far nobody. And by the way, when you can talk about finding your champions from the last episode, you can turn them into your champion, because when you say, Bob, can you be the person that can help me in your organization? Because I've talked to so many who have done absolutely nothing for me. Can you be that? Good. All of a sudden it's like, Bob's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Bob's empowered.
Exactly right. You've empowered Bob. And now Bob is willing to fight for you. Because
Bob's got a lame ass supervisor who should have empowered his ass long ago. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to fix Bob?
Maybe we can develop a whole series on how to fix Bob.
But I want to fix Bob. I want his supervisor to fix Bob. I got other people to fix.
We can sell him a program. But until then, as you're, for folks out there, as you're kind of slamming your head against the wall, kind of going over and over again, try that strategy. I promise you will have a different. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% effective, and I'm not saying you're not going to have to use the hammer. But I am saying it might start to position yourself in a little bit of a different mindset, so that the person on the other side is a little more receptive. And sometimes you just need a little more receptive to actually break through and get to where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So to distill everything that I was ranting about, and then I try to fold it up into a sales discussion, is if you sell anything, I don't care what it is, it doesn't even matter. Think through your customer's eyes first. Like
100%.
You don't even have to have a far superior product. If you are relatable and you could think of every single situation that you're going to get in through the customer's eyes, you'll make great decisions and you will sell. Like, it doesn't even matter. You will increase sales if you can change your mindset to, what is the person across from me feeling, thinking? How will they react when I do this? How will they view this when I send it to them? How is my voice being inflected when I communicate with them? If you can make those calculations, that's emotional intelligence. That is probably the sales tool.
I would say that
leads to high performers.
And honestly, based on where this conversation started, that is the cachet of the future. That is where you can make you, like, if you want to.
It's so rare. If you have that trait, it's amazing.
That's what I'm saying.
You're in the top 1% of human beings right now.
It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you can approach it with exactly what you just laid out, all of a sudden you will stand out like a unicorn. Why? Because everybody's like, well, what's up with this person? Like, why are they so different? And it's like you said, it's because all of a sudden they're coming, instead of being me oriented, I'm you oriented. And when I'm you oriented, I legitimately care about what you think, what you're trying to achieve, and how I can play a role in that. And all of a sudden that changes the whole dynamic, because all of a sudden it's like, wow, this person actually gets me, as opposed to, hey, Bob, Bob, are you there? Bob, hello? It's like,
well, by the way, this is not a sales thing. This is a all people thing, right? If you're a manager, director, VP, the way you treat people is going to be, it's going to sum up your ability to get something out of these people. So it's not just a sales thing. Get things done, productivity, all these things are dependent on that. So